Hi everyone, I'm Penny Collins. I'm the lead technical communicator at Vernon, and I'm very excited to share with you our progress on the new Advanced Skills online course. So just a bit of background, we introduced the Basic Skills course because of COVID. Travel was restricted and in many cases impossible. And so we had to find a way to be able to continue our training. Previously, all training was done in person, and the online course was basically created as the equivalent of our Vernon CMS Basic Training Day. So what we would previously do is we would run these a couple of times a year, or we would book in with you, and it could be quite hard for people to make it to training. Also have many clients across the world who are not able to travel all the way to New Zealand to do it. So we introduced this course as a way to be able to train you remotely. So the online course environment is a combination of the learning management system and the Vernon CMS demo system. A demo system is installed on your computer and you access the learning management system through your web browser. The demo system contains example records of social history, natural sciences, libraries, and archives. We've had over 650 people do the basic skills course. And so we're now expanding it to include advanced skills, because currently the only way that you can do advanced skills training is either in person with us or through online Zoom sessions. So the benefits of the online courses, being able to practice, particularly when you're doing things like bulk updates and changes in the system, you don't want to be having that risk associated with your data. It's one thing to practice searching in your own system, but when you're wanting to do things like bulk updates, that's a bit harder to practice when, you can roll back the changes, but it is a bit harder. So with our online courses, you can study them at any time that suits your schedule. We've got videos, infographics, assignments, quizzes, and tests that help you to learn. You can also get help and support from our team. In terms of the roadmap for our online courses, we have the basic skills course that is available now, and that is covering all those basics of learning to use the system. So cataloging, searching, list manager, reporting, and bulk tools. With the advanced skills course, we're moving into the areas of authority files, advanced search, data cleanup, advanced reporting, location management, and XML import. We're looking in the future to develop a supervisor course. So for people who manage the system on behalf of their organization, being able to learn those areas of security, procedural control, customization, user symbolics, system maintenance, and audits. And lastly, with the activities module, we think it would be great to have an online course that teaches you those areas of the activities module. So learning about the different activity files, being able to link objects with activities, learning procedural control, loan management, and customization. Having that ability to practice with example records in the system and try things out. When you're doing those online courses, you've really got the ability to kind of push the limits and try things out and not be worried about breaking things, just really play around with the system. And our different modules, the authority files module, learning what is the difference between authority files, authority terms, and authority fields, and how do they work together? What is the difference between simple files, complex and hierarchical authority files, and how can you recognize those? When you're seeing the authority options window, which you do see all the time in Vernon, but you may not recognize it as such, what does that window do? What are the buttons in there that are going to help you navigate and understand the structure of your authority files? System IDs, why should you care about them? What are they? And how can you create your own system IDs? Being able to create and edit hierarchical terms, so making a term a narrower one than another one and form those hierarchies of terms. Working with object, group, and member records, for example, series of records, photographs and albums, and thesaurial terms. So that's things like use instead terms, used for terms, narrower and broader terms, and also related terms and translation terms. Within advanced searching, understanding what indexes are and how Vernon creates those and how you can search on them. Boolean operators, so that is a fancy term for using things like and or in your searches. Recursive searching is when you start a search in one file, you branch off to another authority file. So for example, starting in the object file, branching across to the person file for some aspect, and then returning to the object file with those results, such as a person born in a certain year, to continue your object search. Null searches, where data is missing from records, and how you can browse indexes. Within data cleanup, we have a range of tools available to help you assess your data and spot issues and gaps. How can you find those records that have or don't have data in those fields? Being able to report on how an authority term has been used throughout the system, where it's been used, and potentially replace it. So an example might be if you have duplicate person records, they're tied separately to your object records, how can you replace one with the other? Delete the duplicate, but make sure that all your object records are linking to the correct term. Finding and replacing text, so that could be capitalization issues, spelling errors, and updating records in bulk across many records. So that's applying the same data to many different records. In advanced reporting, you'd be looking at creating word merge report templates, and then crucially how to edit those existing word merge report templates, perhaps adding a couple of fields to a report template that you've been using for a long time, or change the formatting. How do you do that? And breaking records into groups such as by department. So you could do a report of all of your records, but you want to see them grouped by department or some other factor, and being able to total values based on that particular factor with a grand total at the end of the report, as well as exporting data to Excel. So from List Manager, it's pretty easy to use the copy to Excel function, but if you're reporting on a great number of records in many fields, how do you use the reporting tool to export that data in a format that you can open in Excel? With location management, we would get into how the location file works, being able to practice adding a location into the hierarchy, being able to record light levels for different locations so that you can track your object's light exposure, regardless of which location it's being moved in, being able to track that over time so that you can set limits on how much light an object should be exposed to, and being able to move objects to many locations in bulk. So the basic skills course covers off bulk move and bulk inventory, which is moving many objects to one location. We also have a tool called batch location change, where you can move many objects to many different locations. And the Holy Grail, XML Import. So this fantastic tool that allows you to create or update many records in one go. It's different to our other bulk tools. It's the only one that allows you to create in bulk. So what is the process that you need to follow for that? What are the principles? And you'll be able to practice preparing your data in Excel, setting up the configuration in Vernon, importing your data, and fixing any issues that might come up during the import. So this is an example from XML Import, the landing page for the XML Import one. You can see there's a couple that have been completed already. One is in progress and there are others upcoming. And so these are called units, different units within each module. So we have videos. These are very popular for people who've done the basic skills course. It's a way of showing you what to do in the system rather than just having to read instructions and look at screenshots, being able to see where the mouse is going, how to set things up. They're supported by written instructions. Also infographics, so a way of communicating the more complex concepts and functions within Vernon in a visual overview that we're trying to make clear and simple for you to be able to understand. Flowcharts for some of our more complex areas, such as XML import and word merge, particularly when you're having to use another system as well outside Vernon. Quizzes are scattered throughout the course. Usually you might just need to click the next button, but sometimes there'll be a quiz that you have to answer in order to move to the next unit. And then there are multiple assignments throughout the modules of the course. These are not something that we are marking you on. This is all self-led, but it's recommended ways for you to try things out using example records in the demo system. You can repeat them as many times as you want. And then lastly, tests. So each of the main modules within the course have tests, usually around about 5 questions. You have to pass them in order to move to the next module, but you can retake them as many times as you need. So in terms of the costs, we have got the cost listed there, and that is equivalent with the basic skills one to 1 hour of online Zoom training. So if you were to pay us to run an online Zoom training session, it's the equivalent cost for the whole of the basic course, and for the advanced skills course, it's equivalent to 2 hours of online Zoom training. So the basic skills course has over 80 of those individual units, and the advanced skills one has 150. Access to the basic skills course is for 2 months, and for the advanced skills courses for 4 months. There is a discount. If you have 11 people to join the course, you'll only pay for 10 places. You can sign up now for the basic skills course, or you can register your interest in the advanced course, and we'll be able to email you and let you know when it's out. We'll, of course, be doing a big promotion around it through the newsletter.